Now, one person we did hear from today for the first time, Karen Reed herself, doubling down, of course, saying she did not do this. She wants to know who did.
Said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? First, before I get started, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to set the chat to members only. Why did I do that? So annoying. I think that should do it. That should fix it. But I wanted to talk to you all about Karen Reed and John O'Keefe's last fight. And we talk a lot about Gretchen Voss in the past 2 weeks because, of course, it was requested by the prosecution that she hand over all her tapes. And it's really been Gretchen Voss's narrative. So she's the journalist, if you don't know, who wrote the article in Boston Magazine. And it was really the first narrative was really told from Karen Reed's perspective that anyone got to hear. And the narrative told by people on both sides of the fence in the Karen Reed case has not changed much from Gretchen Voss's narrative, despite the wealth of evidence that we have gotten since Gretchen Voss's article has come out. And I think that is really unfortunate. And one of the main things that has gotten really missed in the trial, and I wonder why the Commonwealth did not talk about Karen Reed and John O'Keefe's last fight. Now, what was it about? It was about Karen Reed not being able to come out because she was waiting for Richie the plumber, a guy who had fixed her plumbing before. So she'd been alone with him before. I think in a desperate attempt to make John O'Keefe jealous and feel unimportant and emasculated. She had left this out, that this is the first time anyone had heard of Richie the plumber. And most people don't even know about Richie the plumber because it got left out of the narrative, not in the evidence, because in the text messages and in the grand jury, it was talked about, but never in trial. So we're going to go over it today, starting with, and I got really turned on to this from the Innocence Fraud Watch blog. Great blog. Link is in the description of this episode. Of course, I had read all the text messages going back and forth. I'd done an episode on all the text messages back and forth. But you have to think that John O'Keefe's father was a plumber. Here they are waiting for Karen Reed. She doesn't start texting him till about right when he leaves One Meadows. And she texts him for over an hour and 10 minutes, all about this plumber and her plumbing issues. She can't come out. Right. She can't come out because she's waiting for this plumber in the evening hours of a Friday night, which is a very intimate time of the day. Let's just call it that. Little different than being alone with a man in broad daylight, alone with a man after dark hours. And this is really after hours, even for plumbing issues. But so let me share with you a little bit. Let me just read a little bit from the blog. So I'm going to just start in the middle here. Brewing tensions. Karen Reed's alleged plumbing issue was and still is highly relevant because tensions appear to have been brewing on the evening of January 28th, 2022, because John O'Keefe and Karen Reed regarding the plumbing issues on top of all other brewing tensions. When Michael Camarano was cross-examined by Alan Jackson on day 7 of Karen Reed's first murder trial, he was asked if there was any tension. So here's Michael Camarano on the stand being asked by Alan Jackson if there was any tension that night between Karen Reed and John O'Keefe when they were in C.F. McCarthy's pub. In response to Alan Jackson's question, Michael Camarano said, "Not that I recall." So isn't this a change of tune? Not being able to recall something, Innocence Fraud Watch points out, is not the same as saying there was no tension, which Michael Camarano did not say. Michael Camarano knew that John O'Keefe, so this is John O'Keefe's friend, Michael Camarano, had been wound up by Karen Reed. That's a great phrase there. Wound up by Karen Reed about her plumber tale because John had expressed his annoyance to Michael seemingly while in C.F. McCarthy's pub. And Michael Camarano had raised this fact with Trooper David DeCiccio in 2022. Karen had waited until 7:24 p.m. on January 28th, 2022, before choosing to mention to John O'Keefe that she had an alleged issue, quote unquote, with her hot water, quote unquote, at her house in Mansfield. This was around the time Michael Camarano and John O'Keefe were headed out to the pub. Karen Reed had stated in her 724 message to John, see Exhibit 627, "I am having issues with my hot water, so had to text someone to take a look." So she's texting with this plumber. John O'Keefe says at 7:25, "You trying to piss me off?" So immediately he senses what she's doing. Karen Reed's known him for 2 years. She knows everybody knows what's going to make their partner, I hate to use that word partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband mad. Here she says, "You trying to piss me off, John O'Keefe," to Karen Reed. She knows, this will piss me off. My dad and I would fix this for free. Are you trying to make me feel totally useless? Why are you waiting for a strange man to come fix an issue that I could easily fix for free? At 7:28, Karen had messaged John, "I don't want to come home in a blizzard and then really be up S Creek." At 7:43, referring to the plumber, John O'Keefe had also messaged Karen Reed, 8 o'clock on a Friday. So he's like, what, 8 o'clock on a Friday, you're waiting for a plumber? What? What is this story? Are plumbers even working at 8 o'clock on a Friday night? And you're texting him, not calling him? Hold on one second. Karen had questioned John 7:43 message with a question mark, meaning, huh? What? Me? Plumber? 8 o'clock Friday night? What? Me? Make you jealous? Make you pissed off? Me? Karen Reed? Playing head games? What? Me? No, never. In response to this, John had stated, you have a plumber coming over at 8 p.m. Knowing me and Papa could have handled it. Good luck. And gaslighting. Karen Reed waited until about 7:48 to tell John that she had allegedly expected the plumber to arrive at 5 p.m., as can be seen in a copy of her following message. I have always told you I will not put either of you out. See, it's Karen being so selfless. Of your way, the way everyone else in your life does. See, I'm different. I'm special, John. I don't put you out. I just text you relentlessly and call you relentlessly all day. Every minute. I don't want to put you out with a plumbing issue, but I will text and call you excessively all day, horrendously, so you won't have a moment's peace. Does anybody go back to my episode on the text messages? They are something. Not respecting his boundaries, continuing to call and text, and he let most of those calls go unanswered. I knew you would be working right when you were at the doctor's with I knew it wasn't working right when you were at the doctor's with Kaylee, and I knew neither of you could get here, and this guy, Richie, fixed it the last time, whenever it was. He was supposed to be here at 5. At 7:55, Karen had informed John that the plumber had allegedly arrived at her house at 481 Gilbert Street, as can be seen in the copy of her message below. He's here now. If it's not quick, I'm not doing it. Oh, okay. So it's hugely important that you do it. But if it's not quick, it's not hugely important. I just want to be sure nothing is wrong, will go wrong when I'm not home. Because she's supposed to be staying with John O'Keefe. Although she tells through the snowstorm, but she tells her friend, I wasn't supposed to stay at One Meadows last night, John's house. So when John O'Keefe had asked Karen Reed what the problem was, Karen had alleged that she didn't know and referred to it as a piece that was all rusted. Karen had also told John that the plumber had alleged got to go to HD Home Depot and would probably return the following day, as can be seen in the copies of her 2 messages below. Said he's got to go to Home Depot, will probably be back mañana, tomorrow. Tomorrow it's supposed to be in Northeastern. Everybody knows that. What is she playing at? I don't know. He showed me some pieces that were all rusted. I don't understand half this stuff. Me, I just don't understand half this stuff. I'm not a plumbing expert. So these were the last 2 messages to John O'Keefe on January 28, 2022, which she sent to him at 8:35, seemingly before she set off for C.F. McCarthy's in Canton from her house in Mansfield. Read, maybe I'll come back late tonight. Bad snow is in the early a.m. I'll head up there in a few minutes. Let me know if you leave. What did Karen Reed tell John O'Keefe about how things were left between her and the plumber when she arrived at C.F. McCarthy's pub? This would have been one of the first questions John O'Keefe would have had for Karen Reed when she arrived and settled in the pub. When did Karen Reed arrange for the plumber to return to replace the alleged piece that was all rusted? What did Karen tell John the plan was with the plumber? Why have we heard from the plumber? I'll just add my own questions here, which I assume are similar. And if Karen Reed was generally without hot water and her elaborate plumber story was not concocted, when did Richie return to 481 Gilbert Street, Mansfield, between January 29th and the day she returned from her parents' house in Dighton? Did it ever get fixed? Why has no one asked Karen Reed this? Why have we not seen any text messages from her phone to alleged plumber? Why is the plumber a witness in this case if such a plumber exists? Or is this a totally concocted story? She said she would fix some holes on June 18th, 2022. David Benenik for WCVB Boston asked Karen Reed about the possibility of her testifying in her first trial here. In response, she stated, "I'd like to fill in some holes and correct some lies." Would she like to fix some pipes too? I don't know. On the morning of January 29th, Karen Reed had told both Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts, "I wasn't meant to stay in Kent last night." Karen was telling Jen that she had not planned to stay at John's house. So yeah, same thing. Same idea there. We've heard about other alleged fights between John O'Keefe and Karen Reed. Does anybody remember Paul O'Keefe on the stand? Let me just play a clip of it.
What if any occasions, as far as they're arguing or anything like that, did you observe personally yourself?
Yeah, I witnessed. So they had rented a house down in Cape Cod. That was summer of 2021. I brought my two daughters down for a couple nights, and I witnessed, one intense fight between the two of them.
And as far as a fight, as you're characterizing that, was that anything physical or just verbal?
No, it was a verbal argument.
And what, if anything, was that verbal argument about?
It's hard to recall. I mean, I guess like typical couples fighting. There was alcohol had been involved. I recall her complaining that he wasn't nice to her, or something to that effect, and I was kind of the referee in that entire situation.
Now, when you make reference to alcohol involved, is that one or both, or
both?
Both your brother and the defendant.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody remember that? About the Aruba fight, but clearly there was a large hole between walking from C.F. McCarthy's to the waterfall, which would have taken, by David Yanetti's words, 3 minutes. Why did it take 14 minutes? Were they fighting then? When they were parked outside of 34 Fairview, before John O'Keefe backed up, were they fighting then? Were they fighting all the way over to 34 Fairview? I think so. I think John O'Keefe had finally had enough. And if you look at the pattern, and I consider Karen Reed a psychopath, and all psychopaths are also narcissists, there is a cycle they go through. First is idealization, then devaluation, then they discard, and then they can hoover back in. But I think this was the final discard. I think there was no time to hoover back in. This is where they were on this side of the abuse cycle. She had devalued him all through the day with her text messages, saying he treated her so badly. All she wanted to do was help, and things were tough for her, and that he had been so terrible to her that morning. And he wrote, well, not the way it went down, but, and just tell me if there's someone else, and constantly just not listening to or honoring his boundaries, constantly calling, constantly text messaging him, haranguing him all day, till he finally invited her out that night. And then she's dying to go have a drink all day. And then when he does invite her out for a drink, she can't go because she has a plumber issue. And he knows immediately what it is. Are you trying to piss me off, Karen? But the final discard was Karen Reed going 24 miles an hour in reverse, her foot 75% on the pedal, hitting something that night with her infotainment system beeping at her. Does anybody have any idea what that infotainment system sounds like? To give you an idea, so it also flashes, but here's an idea of just like the sound of it. And it gets louder. RIP headphone users, I should have warned you. Gets louder the closer you get. You could not have ignored that beeping and that flashing. You know how your car works. If you're a driver, you know you're intimately familiar with your car. She could not have missed it. This is not something she did by mistake, by accident. If it were by accident, we would like to think she would have gotten out and checked on John and gotten him help. But she wanted to cause maximum damage. She knew he didn't wear a coat. And she knew that by leaving him, that he was in risk of serious bodily injury or death. Hence why she got the charge. Leaving a scene of an accident, causing serious bodily injury or death. So, but before that, she was also already devaluing John, saying he was cheating on her. Let me share with you another clip.
Ask you to read from that.
So these are text messages that were read in trial.
Defendant said, yeah, but where is that? I have had all my shit here for a couple of years and my house has been vacant, but I'd like to get closer to the water. I responded, are you breaking up or staying together? Defendant responded, I don't know. He hooked up with another girl on vacation. I'm very close to his niece. It is a very fucked up situation. I respond.
Okay, so we know that Aruba fight was not a fight that was based in reality. He wasn't having an affair. He hugged another woman and she went ballistic. These are all Karen Reed's imaginings to Brian Higgins.
When was that and how did you find out he hooked up? ? I don't want to complicate your situation. Defendant responded, we went away for New Year's, the four of us. I put the kids to bed and found him in the lobby of our hotel all over one of our friends. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I responded, it does matter.
Now, as far as that indication that she made to you, either through text communications or in person, did she indicate at any point in time where that occurred?
So there was an occasion that the defendant stopped at my house. And again, the conversation that took place at my house was in relation to, again, sussing out and trying to figure out if this was what everything that I stated before. Like, was this legitimate? Was she seriously interested in me? Was she at the end of her relationship with John? And during that, there was touch on that topic, and I became to realize, it was my understanding at that point that this incident took place in Aruba on New Year's Eve, based off the text messages and the conversation at my residence.
This was something that she brought up, not only in the text communications with you, but in person in communication with you as well.
Yes, I mean, outside of being over there for the game, there was only one time that the defendant and I ever interacted on a one-on-one basis.
So there you go. The defendant and I interacted. Brian Higgins, who I think was very much sussed her out by asking a lot of questions, a lot of which Karen Reed didn't answer. I think he sussed her out as a dangerous person. But what happened? So here's my question, going back to Richie the plumber. So we've heard about some of the other fights that they had. What changed Michael Camerano's testimony? Was it Karen Reed's innocence fraud campaign? Was he afraid that Karen Reed's minions and devotees would attack him? What changed? What changed his testimony from the grand jury testimony to the trial testimony, to the televised trial testimony? So the grand jury testimony is in secret. He's telling a cop one-on-one. So, but even before grand jury, he's telling cop, was it Demetrio? Did something like that? Excuse me for not recalling exactly. Telling the cop the same thing. He was annoyed that Karen Reed got this plumber over. He was annoyed. He was annoyed that night. He told me he was annoyed. And for John O'Keefe, from what we hear, he's someone who kept his problems mostly to himself. He wasn't super open about negative things going on in his life. Otherwise, we would have heard testimony, because it seemed like they fought often about that. He was very open with Michael Camerano that he was annoyed. Why didn't we hear about that? What happened between Michael Camerano telling the cop, telling the grand jury, to the televised trial? Did Karen Reed get the narrative she wanted? Because if you go back to the parents' interview, we're going to look at Karen Reed's own interview, first interview, it was things were great. Things are really good in our relationship. That's the narrative she wanted. Did her innocence fraud campaign have the effect that she wanted? Did she intimidate the witnesses to create a false narrative about her and John's relationship? You have to ask yourself, what happened? Not that I recall. It's not that he's lying. He just maybe doesn't remember. Not that I recall or I don't recall are answers that lawyers tell you to give when you don't want to give the truthful answer, because it's perjury and illegal to lie under oath, but it's not illegal to not remember something. What caused Michael Camerano's slip in memory? I'm going to have you guys ponder that. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to go through your comments.
We got your comments. You had something to say. You were insightful. Oh, so clever. So Roberta's going to read your comments. Hey, Roberta, read those comments.
Patty Dunn says, agreed with you, Roberta. William Reed on the stand will be very interesting. Boy, I hope Brennan pulls him on the stand. Wouldn't that be interesting? Is that one of his tells when adding details to his answer, the rapid eye movement? I wonder. Maybe we should take another look at that if we have time today. Maybe we'll take another look at I never noticed his rapid eye movements. Steve CF01 says her notes, meaning Gretchen Voss's notes, the journalist who wrote for Boston Magazine, who now is being ordered by Judge Cannoni to hand over not just her notes, her audio interviews, unredacted audio interviews. I care less about her notes than her audio interviews, but okay. Nothing to do with John O'Keefe or Karen Reed. Wait, what are her notes on? Her notes are on her interview with Karen Reed. What do you mean they have nothing to do with John O'Keefe or Karen Reed? They're important because Voss is a member of the press. Well, first of all, your premise is incorrect. And I might agree with you that they're more Gretchen Voss's interpretations and thoughts on Karen Reed and John O'Keefe. Why are you so supportive of a journalist divulging all information, regardless of the non-protective shield law in Massachusetts? Well, there are no laws in Massachusetts. Karen Reed is not a secret source. There are no laws, and thus she has to hand it over. I care about it because a man has been killed, namely John O'Keefe in this case. And I don't believe that Gretchen Voss's, I don't believe her story that she's been harassed so much. Certainly it doesn't apply now. That she's scared to give her unredacted notes. I think unredacted tapes, forget her notes, her unredacted tapes. I think they're going to be really critical because that's the first time Karen Reed had really told her story with her lawyers present. Nevertheless, and I would like to hear how her lawyers crafted the story, helped her craft this narrative, and how that interview went. She gave up her Fifth Amendment privilege, not me. And Gretchen Voss had to know that those tapes might come into play in the upcoming trial. She knew Karen Reed was charged. She knew she was giving a risky interview. And I see no reason why Gretchen Voss should redact her tapes. Beth Ryan says, please play the footage of when the brother, Nathan Reed, was at John's house and he was brushing snow off Karen's car. He comes from the passenger side of Reed's car and goes to brush the snow off the back of her car, realizes he was about to touch the right taillight with the pieces missing, and veers off from it like a snake was about to bite him. LOL. He goes to the left taillight and brushes snow off that side only. Well, let's take a look at that, Beth Ryan, shall we? Thanks for your comments. Yeah, you can almost hear them thinking, right? Just leave the snow over the taillights, both of them. It's more the window when you really look at it, right? Let's take a look. Let's go back. Let's see, comes back, and I'm forgetting a moment. My apologies. My computer froze. I guess we're going to take another look at it. Take another look very quickly. Go right to where we were before. Skip past. So he goes past. Yeah, here's the end. And then there's Nathan Reed's wife coming out of the car. Which I wonder if she's going to be testified. She seems to know that Karen Reed's guilty. But both of them avoiding the right light at all costs. I mean, look at that snow. Look at walk up. Wipe off the left, but not the right. There it is. There it is. Avoid the right tail light at all costs. Unreal, right? Great comment, Beth, Ryan. Appreciate it. Should we look at Nathan Reed and William Reed and his, let me see if I have it, his parents' interview.
Beaten in a basement, dragged out through a bulkhead, and left in a snowstorm to die in the cold.
That's how Karen Reed's family claims John O'Keefe was killed in the town of Canton. They shared that theory with 25 Investigates reporter Ted Daniel.
Ted spoke to Reed's parents for nearly 2 hours about their fight to prove their daughter's innocence.
It seems logical that police would have looked at Karen Reed as a possible suspect. One of her taillights had fresh damage. She openly questioned if she hit John O'Keefe, and prosecutors say she left him a voicemail.
Look at this narrative. She openly questioned. It goes back to my opening, right? No, she has to question. She didn't admit to it 175 times or whatever, how many times she admitted to it. I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Is he dead? It's my fault. I hit him. It's just she has to question, guys. She has to question.
That night saying she hated him. Those are some of the facts being used against her. But Reed's parents and thousands supporting her say there's so much more to this story that doesn't add up.
She's from Taunton with a career in finance. He was a Boston cop from Braintree.
I really don't want to be in the picture.
Get over here. Karen Reed's parents say she and John O'Keefe became serious in 2019, right before the pandemic.
They just seem to be in a happy place, yeah.
And spending a lot of time together?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Vacations together.
Yep.
Going out together.
If the relationship had become toxic by January 2022, as prosecutors allege, it's not apparent from this snapshot in time. As C.F. McCarthy.
Right, and I find it very interesting. She's telling Brian Higgins she's very close to Kaylee and John O'Keefe's niece and nephew, who he was raising. When she says to John O'Keefe in the text messages that day, that of January 28th, 2022, that the four of them were toxic together. And Kaylee's testimony was that she'd get mad at them for no reason. It was fraught with issues. They certainly were not in love with Karen Reed. She hated those kids the way I see it. But she's taking on John O'Keefe's, I'm very close with Kaylee. I don't know what I'm going to do. She wanted to, hitting John O'Keefe was much about punishing him, but it also had the added punishing and demolishing him and removing him from the planet as it was punishing the children. That had the added bonus of punishing the children. Your parental figure gone now, kids. Second time, both have to lose both your parents so young, and then to lose your uncle. And I hate to use that word lose, but to have to deal with death at such an early age. What a horrible thing to put children through. I'm sure Karen Reed enjoyed it. Added benefit. And this is all about power and control, this relationship for Karen Reed. So let's look at William Reed. Yeah, see, this is what we heard in trial.
In Canton, they laugh and embrace during a night of heavy drinking. According to police, Karen would back over John and leave him for dead in a snowstorm 2 hours later. Prosecutors say it happened outside the Canton home of another Boston cop named Brian Albert. Karen says she dropped John off there for a get-together.
During your first discussions with Karen, did she believe she may have hit John?
No. No. She felt she struck something. She said, Dad, I think I struck something. I said, what do you mean?
All right. Well, I see a lot of blinking. And of course, I felt I struck something is an experiential memory. You feel you struck something that she would have felt it as she was going backwards 24 miles an hour in reverse with her foot 75% on the pedal. She hit something. She would have literally felt it in the car. So I see a lot of blinking. I don't know about rapid eye movement. Did anybody see rapid eye movement? I saw a lot of blinking going on. We'll watch it one more time. And then we're going to listen to Karen Reed's Nightline interview, which hasn't been played, and we haven't examined that in a little bit.
Karen says she dropped John off there for a get-together.
During your first discussions with Karen, did she believe she may have hit John?
No. No. She felt she struck something. She said, Dad, I think I struck something. I said, what do you mean? All right, this was in the hospital. Right? She says, I remember, all right, backing up and hitting something.
Police find damage to the passenger side taillight of Karen's Lexus LX5.
Right. And then this is also where Nathan Reed says the snow pieces were found on top of the snow, which they weren't. But let's just listen to Karen Reed. We haven't heard her talk about the relationship. This is her Nightline interview.
Outside this courthouse in Canton.
Doesn't this footage look familiar? It sort of looks like my opening, doesn't it?
Massachusetts, supporters swarmed around Karen Reed, charged with murder in the January 2022 death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Reed has strenuously denied the allegations.
I did not kill John O'Keefe. I've never harmed a hair on John O'Keefe's head.
Her defense, bare-knuckled and bold.
We may get through this yet. I don't know why, but my is it bumpy for you guys? I don't know. It's seizing up on me, my computer today. My apologies, guys. We'll try it one more time. Go through the beginning.
In the middle of a snowstorm in January 2022. But Reed says she had no reason to harm her boyfriend.
I would call him the patron saint of Canton. He was just very selfless, frugal, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone that didn't care for John.
Frugal, it has to be Karen Reed. I think she's talking about herself. I think John O'Keefe paid for most of the things. If they did anything, they went halvesies. But she told Karina, testified that she told her that John O'Keefe and she were planning a trip together that night. Is that something Karen made up, or is that something Karina made up? Where is this? I mean, the narrative we heard at court was that things were so stellar between they were lovey-dovey that night. And you look at the pictures, and John O'Keefe has his arm around Karen, and Her arm is flat to her side, looking stiff. Frugal is not a compliment, generally. Who wants to be known as frugal? Selfless, okay. Patron saint of Canton seems to be going over the top, but okay.
The couple first dated in their 20s and reconnected more than a decade later in the middle of the pandemic.
So how did you meet up again?
He had reached out to me on Facebook and he said, "Hey, blast from the past, how's things?" And when I saw his picture, his profile picture.
Here's a difference in narrative, too. Remember, the parents said it happened before the pandemic. And here it's in the middle, which is very different, which when people are isolated, people are alone, people are more vulnerable. She also knew he was vulnerable. This is when people like Karen Reed strike, when you're vulnerable. Knew John O'Keefe had lost his sister and was raising her and his brother-in-law and was raising their two kids. And I believe she reached out to him on Facebook, but of course she's going to make it seem like John O'Keefe reached out to her on Facebook. We know she's the Facebook aficionado. And part of their text messages that day was that she had blocked him on Facebook. She wanted him to look at something on Facebook. He's like, "You blocked me on it, on Facebook as friends." And she was like, "Oh yeah." Facebook is really her territory. So this is why I think that it's Karen Reed who reached out to John, if I had to guess.
Was with several young children, and then it triggered my memory that his sister and his sister's husband had passed away. And he told me, "Yeah, I have the kids now." I admired that. I thought that was amazing.
Soon, Reed says she became part of the family, often sleeping over at O'Keefe's house and helping take care of the kids.
She found her mark. We know she likes police officers. Here's a police officer, but he's a police officer with some past trauma. Perfect for power and control. If you're into that, if that's the relationship you want, if you want to control someone, find them when they're vulnerable.
Go to work and I would stay with his niece and nephew. All of the breaks that the kids had, we did something.
But their relationship also had its struggles. Reeves says O'Keefe had been relying more on her to take care of the kids and that he criticized some of the decisions she made with them.
We had an argument on New Year's Eve. We were away on vacation and he became incoherently drunk. And I ended up ringing in the new year with his niece and nephew. John didn't come back to our room till after 3 a.m. So.
Right, incoherently drunk. And didn't come back to the room till 3 a.m. Because, again, floating out the idea that he might have had an affair while he was so drunk. When she seems to be the heavier drinker of the two.
That was rough. I felt very much taken advantage of. He apologized profusely for what happened on New Year's Eve, and he said, "If you can't get over it, then you need to spend some time at yours. I can't keep apologizing. I don't want to keep rehashing this."
A few weeks later, they were invited to meet up with some friends at the Waterfall Bar in Canton.
So something about psychopaths. So they tell the truth as much as they can. They also lie a lot. But I believe her when she says he said he couldn't keep apologizing and didn't want to keep rehashing it. Who was constantly bringing up this jealousy she had towards John O'Keefe hugging another woman. I believe she did try to rehash arguments.
And there, they ran into Brian Albert, a fellow Boston police officer who Reed says O'Keefe looked up to. Albert had led the city's gang unit before commanding the Fugitive Apprehension Team. It was the elite squad responsible for taking down some of the city's most dangerous criminals and featured in the 2013 TNT show, Boston's Finest.
1 minute we're walking around, everything's fine, and then 1 minute it's not fine.
Both times I met Brian Albert, he seemed like the type of person that you'd be surprised he's out socially because he doesn't seem like he ever wants to be there.
But at the bar, Reed says there was an invitation to continue hanging out at Albert's home.
I said, "Can we make sure we're welcome here? Nobody extended the invite to me. I didn't hear the invite extended to you.
They drive to the Alberts' house. What happens next is disputed.
So I pull at the foot of the driveway. It's snowing. John has no coat on. It's windy. So I drop him off. He goes up the driveway and approaches the side door. And as I see him approach the door, I look down at my phone.
Reed says after about 10 minutes of waiting in her car, she became irritated that O'Keefe still hadn't gotten in touch with her. And she drove back to his home where...
Well, we know that she didn't wait 10 minutes. Sorry, I'll just wait for that ambulance to pass. I don't know if you can hear it, guys. Why did she look at her phone at the crucial moment that he's walking in the door? This has always bothered me about this interview. Why did she look at her phone? That's the crucial moment. Wow. Sorry. I appear to be reporting in a crime scene outside my window here in New York. I don't know what's going on. Why did she look at that crucial moment when he's getting in the door? That's the moment you do look to make sure someone gets in. Instead, she's waiting 10 minutes. You know, so she's tailoring her story to their, I believe, their fight they had. I don't know if it was 10 minutes, but they were seen parked outside for a while before they were gone. What were they talking about? Were they arguing about the plumber then? And Karen Reed's latest shenanigan to make John O'Keefe angry.
She continued calling him before she says she fell asleep around 1:30 in the morning. She then says she woke up before 5 a.m. He still wasn't home. She then started canvassing the neighborhood.
Just gonna drive around in the 2 square miles that we spent the preceding night.
After 20 minutes of unsuccessful searching, she called John's friend, Carrie Roberts, and Jennifer McCabe, Brian Albert's sister-in-law, who was also at his...
Right, that's an interesting thing. Where did she go in those? She searched in a 2-mile radius. She searched for 10 minutes. She searched. That's when she returned to 34 Fairview? And did she collect Carrie and Jen? I believe to go enact her hysterics and be so surprised. But how did she, psychic Karen Reed, know exactly where to find John O'Keefe? And no one else could see him. But before she even gets close to him, she's kicking the door. Let me out. Let me out. And all the way, can you imagine being Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts? All the way there. Jen, Carrie, Jen, Carrie. Because already she's acting what she thinks is crazy. Acting crazy. So it's to no one's shock when she gets herself sanctioned. Strangely before she ever has to talk to the police, she's in the safety of the hospital wing where she doesn't have to talk to anyone because she's out of her mind, quote unquote. I do not believe her theatrics. I think she was cool and calculated. And this was a cool and calculated plan that she schemed up in the wee small hours of the morning before she ever awakened Kaylee to call Jen McCabe. Collect them and go find John, quote unquote. Strangely, she found him the first place they looked.
His house
really.
the night before.
You know, on the side of the road. I mean, the first place she wanted to look. She wanted to go back. We have to go back to Fairview. Why Fairview? Strangely, she knew right where she left him. So please, everybody on this side of the fence and the other side of the fence, spare me this she didn't know she hit him nonsense. I can't take it. I can't take the nonsense on both sides of the Karen Reed aisle anymore. Please. I'm so frustrated. Spare me. She might have been so drunk she was in a blackout. She didn't know what she'd done. Really? She seemed to remember everything really well. and knew right where to look for him.
The three women together now headed to Albert's home.
How soon was it when you pulled in there that you saw John's body?
Immediately. And what struck me when I saw him was his mouth was open a little bit and his eyes were shut and he had spots of blood in different areas on his face.
O'Keefe was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. He died from blunt force trauma and hypothermia. And it wasn't long before Reed became the #1 suspect. Authorities say they had noticed a cracked taillight after they seized her car.
I had told both Jen and Kerry that I cracked my taillight. I said I just hit my car on top of everything, but I didn't look at the damage.
She cracked her taillight into pieces, many pieces. I mean, a cracked taillight, it's like, oh, it's just a crack running through it, and it's all intact. That's what you think of when cracked taillight. She damaged it, severely damaged her taillight when she hit John O'Keefe in reverse, 24 miles an hour, never once touching the brake with her foot 75% on the pedal, with her infotainment system beeping at her.
And both women said, it's cracked, it's cracked. Calm down, you cracked your taillight. You're okay, let's go look for John.
How many times is she going to use the word cracked? It's not completely obliterated, damaged, beyond the pale, smashed. It's cracked, guys. It's cracked. It's cracked. It's cracked. I said it's cracked. They said it's cracked. Did I mention that my taillight was cracked? Does everybody get the language that you're supposed to use around my taillight? That it's cracked? Okay.
But according to police statements, Jennifer McCabe told authorities that while they were looking for O'Keefe, Reed stated, "Could I have hit him? Did I hit him?" And when O'Keefe's body was discovered, first responders who arrived on the scene say they overheard Reed make other statements.
Other statements, I hit him, not did I hit him, it's my fault, I did this, it's my fault, she's saying. She says, it's my fault, which means I did this, no one else, me, my fault.
Firefighter said that you said, I hit him.
I said, I hit him. It was preceded by a did and proceeded by a question mark.
Right, because I'm Karen Reed. I just was putting it out as a possibility. Strangely, the possibility that matches all of the evidence. This is the way Karen Reed talks, look at the way Karen Reed did her crime. It's always by proxy. There's always a middle person. There's always a little bit of plausible deniability, of not getting your hands dirty, of asking someone else to make the calls. Someone else, Jen McCabe, you make the search. You make the internet search. Of putting other people in the middle to not only cover up her own crime and put different characters into the story, but to give her a little bit of deniability, to make them the people that do the action. She's just the puppet master. Does everybody get that? I mean, think about how you would do this crime. It's a very clever crime to hit someone, because you could say, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. Everybody saw me drinking. I was drinking so much. I was out of my mind. So she can blame it on alcohol, which we've had both sides of the aisle say, oh, it's just alcohol. She wouldn't have done this sober. I don't think so. I mean, nobody said she was that drunk that night or that morning. Yet we knew she was. I think she was a habitual drinker who could drink without it really touching the sides. And I think she's been fantasizing about doing something like this for a long time. At least since John O'Keefe asked her to leave the home and she refused to. his home. I believe that was 2 weeks beforehand.
I thought could have happened was that did I incapacitate him unwittingly somehow, and then in his drunkenness passed out?
When you walked out of the bar, how many drinks had you had?
I had
4. There, she's going to say 4. Untrue. Did I hit him unwittingly? No, you hit him wittingly, and his drunkenness had nothing to do with it. It was his injuries. But that's the way Karen Reed's going to blame it on his drunkenness.
probably about 4.
The Commonwealth says that you had 9 drinks that night. That's what the prosecution says.
I don't believe they're saying I wasn't in my right mind.
No, they were saying you were intoxicated. Is it possible that you...
There's a real admission, I believe. They're not saying I wasn't in my... I may have had 9 drinks, but I wasn't out of my mind. There's Karen Reed telling us she wasn't out of her mind. She knew what she was doing. She was in control of her faculties. Hello? Why is everyone on this side of the fence? I'll forget the free Karen readers for a second. I'm just talking about people on this side of the fence. So willing to make excuses for Karen Reed. And implausible ones at that. Oh no, are we one more time? I think I'm frozen. All right, I'll be back in a sec. We'll get back to this in a second, guys. Hold your horses. My apologies, guys. I'm going to have to fix this. I don't know what's going on. Karen. We're right at the end to it, or mega lies all at the end of this episode.
Is it possible that you might have hit him unwittingly in your admittedly very large SUV?
No, not possible.
3 days after O'Keefe was found dead.
Not possible. She just said it was possible. I did. It was possible. It's not possible. Did I hit him unwittingly? She already just fished it out there. Did I hit him unwittingly? She'd already said that. He's like, well, is it possible that you hit him unwittingly? I'm saying she hit him wittingly. I'm saying she hit him knowing what she was doing totally. Never once touching the brake, guys. That's what that means. Can we suss out? Can any of us detectives suss out what never hitting the brake means? It means that you meant to do it. With your infotainment system would have been flashing, beeping, everything.
Investigators arrested Reed for manslaughter. She was eventually indicted on second-degree murder. Investigators reported they found fragments of broken glass on the rear bumper on Reed's vehicle, and that a broken cocktail glass was found by what appeared to be patches of blood near O'Keefe's body.
The victim, Mr. O'Keefe, is last observed on surveillance video with a cocktail glass in his right hand. Same arm that's injured, the same type of glass that is then recovered from the bumper of the defendant's car.
In court documents, the prosecution also claims that Reed's blood alcohol level could have been between 0.13 and 0.29%, above the legal limit of 0.08. In addition, they say pieces of Reed's taillight were found on the scene the day O'Keefe's body was discovered. More fragments of that taillight were found the following week, according to Canton police reports, after the snow melted, which revealed more at the scene. But Reed's attorney, Alan Jackson, has a different theory about how those fragments of taillight got there.
Those pieces of taillight were placed there after the fact.
You're saying evidence was planted?
The pieces of taillight were planted after the fact.
But we know that the car was already on its way to the Sallyport when the CERT team got there. So no time to plant the evidence, but okay. Do you think they planted some of the evidence later when the snow melted and not early on? I mean,
what does the defense believe actually happened to John after Karen dropped him off?
I think he walked into the house. I think he was confronted, was likely brought down to the basement. I think that confrontation got physical, and he was beaten. He was beaten to a point of unconsciousness.
Jackson argues that the autopsy...
How do you tell these tall tales with the total confidence like these lawyers do? I guess if you get paid enough.
Photos of O'Keefe support his theory and not the prosecution's claim.
Looks like he's been in a fist fight and he's been beaten. He's got some defensive wound bruises on the backs of his hand. He's got this massive laceration on the back of his head.
I'm really sorry. I really should have edited out. I try to edit out these pictures of John O'Keefe's body. I know it upsets the family. I'm sorry for
big
not
giant
editing that
gash,
out.
about 2.5 inches, exactly lateral, going from left to right. 2 black eyes, cut over his right eye, cut over his nose. This was a cover-up that John was murdered inside that house. His body was placed outside.
But in a statement to ABC News, the prosecution says there was no conspiracy or cover-up. Such claims have been systematically refuted by evidence submitted to Norfolk Superior Court. The prosecution also said that, according to O'Keefe's cell phone GPS records and 11 witness statements, O'Keefe never entered Albert's home.
Really, where are those 11 witness statements that Albert never entered where are the witness? Oh, I thought they meant 11 witness statements that they had that he entered the house. I'm sorry. I was like, where are these 11 people who said he all entered the house? I thought the defense was saying they had it. Okay, no, this is the prosecution. Okay. I was like, so it's interesting though. You can see here that the defense, this is very much like what happened at trial. The defense has a fanciful story and the Commonwealth has actual testimony and evidence
Submitted to Norfolk Superior Court. The prosecution also said that, according to O'Keefe's cell phone GPS records and 11 witness statements, O'Keefe never entered Albert's home, and that a medical examiner found no signs of Mr. O'Keefe being involved in any type of physical altercation or fight.
There was no evidence that Mr. O'Keefe was beaten and left for dead. There was no evidence of any defensive wounds.
ABC News reached out to attorneys for Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe, but did not hear back by the time of this broadcast. In a previous statement to the Boston Herald, McCabe's attorney said the whole scenario is baseless.
There's Kevin Reddington, who told Turtle Boy he was doing a great job as he was harassing his client, Jennifer McCabe. Why she doesn't complain to the bar about him, I will never know. What a piece of work that is. Can you imagine? You hire a lawyer, Kevin Reddington, and as you're being harassed, as the rolling rallies are going on, Kevin Reddington is writing to the person doing the protests in front of your house, spitting on people's lawns, being like, thank you. You're doing a great job. I really love what you're doing. Harassing my client, Jennifer McCabe. I believe she has a new lawyer now. That's what I've heard. But oh, what a piece of work that guy is. So that's what I have for today, guys. Just a short one. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a terrific night, everybody. I'm going to go out the way I usually do with my song, Hit My Boyfriend with My Car. See you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mom. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet. I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my son.